Thanks everyone for joining. So just a couple upcoming events here at the club. The next tech activity group meeting is going to be on October 15th. And I'm going to make that a video game meetup. So anyone who's interested in playing video games, whether it's just Words with Friends on your phone or if it's something multi-user, let's find out which members at the club are into video games, and then get everyone to meet up so that we can enjoy each other's company virtually in games, not just through the various dinners and talks that we have. So please join if you're into that, October 15th. And for tonight, because the Union League Club is so supportive of the military and because our group is tech, I thought this was a perfect talk for us to hear today. Today we have Rodrigo Levy. He founded Code Platoon in 2016, and he's looking to help veterans transition to successful careers in tech and help tech companies unearth junior tech talent. Prior to Code Platoon, Rod was a partner at G-Bar Limited Partners, where he founded and managed a derivatives trading desk. He holds undergraduate and master's degrees in engineering from Cornell University and an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, where he graduated with honors. Rod has also completed Dev Bootcamp's web developer bootcamp program. So without further ado, please welcome Rod Levy.
Thanks a lot, Jeff, for that introduction. Thanks, John, for that applause. This is a presentation which I am ready to go sort of straight through. It should take about 15 minutes. However, it seems like we have a pretty small audience, so if folks want to ask questions along the way, I am more than amenable to having a conversation as we go through this, so feel free to chime in. I'm not very good at paying attention to people raising their hands, so won't be offended at all if you just blurt over me and say, Rod, I got a question. So with that, let's jump into the presentation. All right, so what is Code Platoon? Code Platoon is, there we go. Code Platoon is a nonprofit coding bootcamp for veterans and military spouses. Our mission is to transform veterans and military spouses into professional software developers through an immersive hands-on educational process and internship program. So Jeff already told you a little bit about me. You know that I was in trading, I was in finance, and probably the relevant part of this is that I went through a coding bootcamp myself back in 2013. It was Dev Bootcamp's web developer program. So I'll start out with a little bit about my story and how we got to where we are today. So most of you may not know much about coding bootcamps. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of background. Back in 2012, I had decided to leave trading. I had kind of had enough. And I had also had not only run a trading desk, but we had a small tech startup within that trading desk that we had tried to monetize and weren't able to monetize. But I had decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I was done with the financial sector. And in order to be an entrepreneur, I recognized that I needed to get some very serious development skills if I wanted to build my own tech product from the ground up. And I tried everything I could to learn on my own. And I had kind of decided that I was going to go get a master's degree and was facing a 1 to 2 year training path before I could actually start writing my own code. And just then I was made aware of this very new model for technical training. It was called a coding bootcamp. Dev Bootcamp was the very first of these coding bootcamps. And the premise was come to our program in a short period of time. In Dev Bootcamp's case, it was 9 weeks. We will teach you everything you need to know to go out and start writing code, to be a junior software developer. Now, these will be very 9 intense weeks. And so in that time, we expect to spend 10 to 12 hours a day for 7 days a week. And so we can teach you these basics. And this coding bootcamp model, as you can imagine, was incredibly appealing to a lot of people. I went through their first program. I got a job as a software developer when I finished. And coding bootcamps today have proliferated wildly across the country. They're all over the place. The good ones are typically 10 to 16 weeks in length. They do demand a lot of your time. Ours demands roughly 60 to 70 hours a week. And the focus is on teaching tools and techniques rather than deep theory. So whereas a university might train what you would consider an architect, we train what you would consider a carpenter. Our graduates are ready to go out and start working right away, and they've got practical skills. They maybe don't have a really deep understanding of the theory, but they can get into industry and they can write enterprise grade code almost out of the box. And these programs cost between $12,000 to $20,000. They're not cheap by any means, although relative to a 1, 2, or 4 year degree, they're a pretty good bargain. So when I finished Dev Bootcamp, I got the job as a software developer and realized that actually being a software developer is pretty hard and not what I really wanted to do. But I was struck by this model and decided that what I wanted to do is bring this model to a community that I cared about, which was the veteran community. And I wanted to take what Dev Bootcamp had done well and expand on it, but also lower the barriers to completing this kind of program. So I started Code Platoon, and the mission is to train veterans and active duty personnel. And now we also admit military spouses. And we took what Dev Bootcamp did well, and that was a high quality education in a compact period of time, but built out that education. So now our program is 14 weeks rather than the 9 of Dev Bootcamps. Plus we also have an evening and weekend program that runs 28 weeks. And the two biggest barriers for folks going through a program like ours were, one, paying for it. And so we address that by having large scholarships. That's part of our mission. Almost nobody that goes through a program pays anywhere close to our tuition. Most of them don't pay anything even north of $3,000. And we have specialty scholarships, Latino and Black scholarship, Women in Tech scholarship, and transgender scholarship, which are full rides. So nobody has ever paid more than $3,000 out of pocket. So we lowered the barrier by lowering costs. And then we also work with corporate sponsors to guarantee our graduates paid internships and apprenticeships. So while the software development community is a very difficult one to get into, once you're in it, the jobs are plentiful. Even in COVID times, software developers are still getting poached, still finding work. But that first job is hard to get. And so we work with companies in the Chicago-based area who are looking for software developers, junior developers, to commit to host our graduates. So corporate sponsors, they, like I said, they commit to host our graduates for apprenticeships. And 90% of the time, these apprenticeships lead to full-time roles within the company. So many of these companies in Chicago, you can see JP Morgan, Grainger, Echo Global, UL, you name it. They work with us, they commit to take one of our graduates, they give them this first internship, and then 9 times out of 10, that leads to a full-time offer. We have solved, obviously, a big problem for our students, but we've also solved a problem for the companies we work with, because not only are they getting well-trained junior talent, they're getting to evaluate them in a low-risk, low-cost way. And for many companies, hiring veterans is part of their diversity and inclusion initiatives. So we're actually doing the sourcing for them. So as you can imagine, they like working with us. They keep coming back. So I mentioned that the companies we work with are pretty happy with the students we send their way. What about our students? Like, our goal as a nonprofit is really to serve the students more than anybody else. And you can see here, most of our students come in median income $40,000, well below household median income in this country. And after 6 months, 81% are working as full-time developers with a $65,000 median salary. And in some ways, this number is actually understated, because some of our students are still in their apprenticeship at the 6-month mark. When they get their full-time offer, their number bumps up quite a bit. If we reported just post-internship numbers, this number would be closer to 75 or 80,000. And then 2 years after graduation, 77% still full-time developers, and well on their way to making 6 figures a year. Now, I know this is a tech group, so I'm going to dive a little bit into the tech stack. We teach JavaScript and React. We teach Python and Django. We teach relational databases in SQL. And we also train for a safe agile certification, and we're an Amazon Web Services certified training facility. So we also teach to the Amazon Web Services Cloud Practitioner certification. We also focus on industry best practices, so object-oriented design, pair programming, Git, test-driven development. And we spend a lot of time on career prep as well, doing interview prep, whiteboarding, behavioral training, LinkedIn preparation, etc. And then a very important part of our curriculum, part that many of our students don't expect and they love, is the soft skills. So we do have separate training on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. We teach about personal finance, giving and receiving feedback, etc. So a little bit about our students. 85% of our students are enlisted, which means that when they left high school, they joined the military. And most of the time, that's because they were looking for a way to better themselves. They were looking for a way out of their communities. And the military was their best path forward to either to have a better life, to serve their country, or to actually earn income so that they can then later go to school. As I mentioned, 40% of them, or $40,000 is the median salary before coming to Code Platoon. Many of our students are working blue-collar jobs. They're driving Ubers. They're working as mattress salesmen, no joke, working at T-Mobile, doing sales, and looking for a better path, looking for a career that doesn't have a glass ceiling, like software development. The diversity of our students, well, it represents the diversity of the military, right? So 12% of our students identify as Black, 13% identify as Hispanic, and this compares to 7.6 in tech and 6.7 in tech for Black and Hispanic, respectively. Those numbers come from Brookings Institute. And those actually are numbers for the tech workforce as Black and Latino, not for software developers. So the software developers in tech are actually a lot smaller than this. We can't find industry numbers, but companies that have done internal reporting, I've seen the numbers are closer to 1 to 2%. So we vastly outrepresent from a diversity standpoint relative to what the tech sector finds today. Our alumni. So I have here a little video. Actually, there's 4 videos here. Trust me, I won't make you go through all of them, but I do have one that I think does a nice job of capturing what our students feel about our program. So if you will indulge me for a little bit, I'm going to play this video that's about 2 minutes.
My name is Hank Moon, and I graduated from India Platoon.
I'm Holly Bird, and I was in India Platoon.
My name's Seth Thompson. I'm the CIO at DRW. I was one of the early adopters of Code Platoon's program. The whole cause gelled well with our firm and what we believe in, and with what I believe in around educating the underserved. And we continued to try interns and work with the program and mentor, and I've hired at least 5 of 6 of the interns so far. It's just been a blessing all the way around.
Now that I'm an alumni of Code Platoon, I am working at DRW. I also get to work with a handful of other Code Platoon graduates. It's great because knowing where they come from and where they are now, seeing that roadmap is something I could kind of emulate and look forward to myself.
I am currently a software engineer intern at DRW. It's still very surreal to me that I get to work at such an amazing company. When I left the military, I was currently working with a very tight-knit team. We were almost like family, and I get that sense of family at DRW.
For DRW, we're very strong believers in supporting the armed forces and in supporting our veterans. It's just great. I mean, we're putting people to work in an underserved community in a job market that needs more candidates. One of the reasons why hiring out of Code Platoon makes a lot of sense is you're finding mature engineers who are junior, who are wanting to grow in many different directions, and you can then help steer them in those directions and have them grow inside your firm. You're going to get people with loyalty, with discipline, and with the ability to learn.
So Hank was Air Force. He was at Air Force. He did refueling, and before he came to us, he lived in northern Wisconsin and found our program and saw that this was a chance for him to be a software developer. Holly was a Marine. She was a cryptologic linguist. She was a translator, deployed a couple times. And she honestly had no plan when she came back. Her roommate was a software developer and encouraged her to go through our program. And you can see they both ended up getting hired at DRW. They both make really fantastic living. And some of the other videos here, if you want to take on your own time, go a lot deeper into the alumni experience and tell you a little more about what their experience was like with us. So that is my presentation. I'd love to see, let me get out of sharing here. What questions do you have for me? Anything that I can tell you about our program or about our students or about our experience that you'd like to know?
Well, first off, thank you so much, Rod, for doing the work that you do. This is just great stories here and really serving the community well. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
What is your limiting factor now? Are you looking for more students or more teachers or more scholarships? Like, what do you need as your next step to keep growing this?
It's interesting. Up until 3 months ago, I would have said that there's really three major pieces to this product that we put together, right? There's the input, the students. There is the quality of the production, which is the students' effort and our curriculum and our instruction. And then there's the sale, right? The sending the student off into a job that makes them and the company successful. Up until, when we first started, the biggest problem was getting the quality of the program together, making this the right process. And right now we are one of the elite coding boot camps. We have some of the best outcomes. Our curriculum is current, it's top notch. And we had great experience with our corporate sponsors, and we had no problem really placing our students. So the biggest impediment to our growth was getting more students. However, since COVID, our applications are through the roof. We've filled this class, we filled next class, we actually expanded the next class. A lot of veterans and active duty and spouses are coming to us saying, I see that software development is a path for me, or I just got laid off from United, or somewhere in between. This is the right time for me to make a career transition. So our applications are doing great. We're having no problem on that side. So, there's always a chicken and egg. Now the egg is the employers. Now I got to find more companies to help support us and make sure that they're involved and see the value proposition of working with our graduates. So I'd say at this point, company engagement is where I'm spending more of my time, and hopefully that's where I'll have to be for a little while.
I imagine that military veterans are especially good in tech jobs because of the discipline that they have. Have you seen examples of that, or do you hear employers talking about how their training has prepared them for this, for these roles?
Absolutely. So what we find, this is our hypothesis, and we've seen this time and again, that hiring somebody who is a veteran as compared to hiring a non-veteran, right? So a coding bootcamp from a regular coding bootcamp, or even a college graduate relative to a code platoon graduate, what they find out of hiring a veteran and why veterans tend to do really well in the software industry. One is kind of, if you know the military at all, you know that it's very process driven, and that most of the veterans will have had to learn how to problem solve. And so a lot of the work that a successful software engineer does is troubleshoot all day. And many of our veterans come back with that skill. I wouldn't say it's innate, but I'd say it's trained. They've been problem solving from day 50 of their service. So that one is something that I didn't really expect. What I do hear, and I did expect, was our veterans are really well trained to work in teams. They work collaboratively extremely well. They're always training the person who's going to take over their role, so they have good team interaction skills. But they also have the capacity to work well under pressure, And they understand that if there is a need for someone to be leading, they know how to step into a leadership role. And they also know that if there's a need for them to be following, they know how to follow. So they really make, again, sort of embellishing the need for being successful team members. They're much better prepared to step into a team-based role as compared to a 21-year-old coming out of college, who many of the CTOs I talk to say, come with the technical skills, but don't really come prepared to work in an environment. And again, software development is a very collaborative effort, and any company that our graduates are going to work in.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
My name is Twan. I'm happy Jeff invited me to this, but I talked to him earlier. I actually recently hired actually he's still in the Army Reserve, so he's actually gone every few weekends from us. But he, and as I told my director, that I really find that the people I've experienced who've come out of the military that have worked in our IT areas seem to really thrive better, in my opinion, than most other people off the street for some reason. And it's just a weird trend. I've seen it in two different departments in our IT organization already. And those military people that I find out that they were in the military or are still serving in some capacity seem to grab these things so much quicker and they go with it, right? There's no fear in something new for them, and they seem to pick these things up and they will go with it. They're just not hesitant with these things, and they start to really understand it. And at first I was wondering if it was that military background, in the sense of the orderliness. Those processes that you mentioned are very, very, you have to do these things to keep things working, right? And being able to fix those things on the fly, especially under that pressure, right? And I think that's where I see them thriving. And I'm happy to see this, because actually it gave me an idea. I might actually recommend this program to him, right? He's actually pretty green to a lot of these things, and I think it would just be actually really helpful in his career path, right, to get more of this coding. But I had a question for you. I see that you focused on JavaScript, Python, and again, SQL is really the dynamic engine that drives a lot of things these days from all of those endeavors. But do you see your graduates move from Python and JavaScript into like Java, into a C++? In the roles that they get, I would assume this helps them pick up those languages a lot quicker as well. Because I see that as the need, right? We're actually moving a lot of our systems to really Java-based stuff ourselves, and I do see people come in with JavaScript backgrounds, but if they haven't had that rigorous dive into programming, it's harder to pick up the Java language versus JavaScript. And if they started moving towards that direction, and if you've seen that in your candidates after they've gotten jobs, they start to really branch out and really take that by the horns and just pick up other languages as well.
Yeah, so we see that a lot. I'd say probably, well, first, we teach two languages rather than one by design. We actually start teaching them with JavaScript and Python side by side on day one for a couple of reasons. First of all, the main goal is we want them to come out of our program and not fear learning other languages. We want them to know that out of the gate, they're polyglots. And then by teaching them these two languages side by side, they can also decipher what are abstractions of a language and then what are embedded routines of a language and embedded methods, so that they can understand that a sorting algorithm, Python might have multiple different sorting algorithms, JavaScript might have different ones, they might be more limited in its scope of what it can do, but then we'll have them write a sorting algorithm from scratch without being able to use a built-in method. To your question about do they leave the JavaScript Python ecosystem? Yeah, probably half of our students leave and go work in Java or C#. Yep. What they don't do well is those are object-oriented languages. As long as they're transitioning to another object-oriented language, then it's usually a matter of learning whether it's static or dynamic typing, learning the environment. So they don't do particularly, they're not really well trained to go into C++, for example, right? Or assembly or COBOL, they're going to write that. But C#, Java, any other object-oriented language, Ruby, obviously, the transition is not that difficult.
Good.
Any other questions? Wendy, John, Chris?
No, this is really interesting. It's very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for attending. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm really happy to learn about this. I'll definitely be recommending it to people looking for tech talent.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're always looking to obviously talk to more companies and send veterans our way too. We have an evening weekend program if you know people that are working. So that'd be great.
Cool. Well, I hope we can meet at the Union League Club someday for to meet in person and
Likewise.
continue the conversation.
Looking forward to those days. Thanks again, Jeff, for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Rod.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.